Thank you everyone for joining us today. This is our first meetup for this year, and we are really honored to have you here today. This year we thought of trying something new, trying to explore other avenues of Flutter. We know Flutter is a big framework with a lot of libraries and toolkits that are available to use. And then this time we decided, how about we start with the gaming platform? We know Flutter has grown over time, and with the recent releases and updates, we have seen improvements in rendering, improvements in the 3D engines and all that. So we decided to get someone who is good in Flutter Flame to be precise, so that he can take us through this. So today we have Kevin. Kevin is a Flutter engineer. He's a full stack engineer and also a Flutter engineer as well. And he has tried quite a lot, I can say, in Flutter Flame. And then I can't really say I've done a lot with Flutter Flame. That's why we have him today. And I really hope you guys are going to enjoy and you're going to learn something from this. And yeah, I hope it will be informative. So if you have any questions as the session is going on, you can drop your questions in the chat and we'll be able to answer them at the end or at the middle of the session. So thank you guys so much. Over to you, Kevin. You can take over.
All right, thank you. So would you prefer to see the video or like me, myself, or do you just want the audio?
If you're in a position that you can turn on your video, it will be super great.
All right. Think you can see me?
Sure, we can.
Okay, so let me just share my screen. You can see my screen?
Yes, we can see it.
All right, so can begin. All right, so today we'll be taking you through building games with Flutter using the Flame engine. Now, to introduce myself, okay, that's actually on the next slide, but I've been working with Flutter since 2017 when it first came out. And yeah, just been mainly experimenting, trying to figure out some stuff, trying to push it to its limits and see what I can create with it. Now, for this presentation, you'll have to understand that I have a flair for the dramatic and a bit of theatrics. So I hope you'll enjoy it. So I am Kevin of House Somyonga, writer of code, lifter of weights, teller of tales, progenitor of innovation, and now builder of games. So today I'll be taking you through this topic, and we can begin by first asking, who would this session be ideal for? So the target of this would mainly be Flutter developers, aspiring game developers, and anyone working on a budget. So as you know, for some of the computers that run the game engines, so Unity, specifications that you need to be able to cater to those softwares are quite expensive. So with Flutter and Flame, what I found was, as long as the device is able to run Flutter SDK, you're pretty much able to run a Flutter game built using the Flame engine. So in a case where perhaps Android Studio would drag your computer down, you can then simply switch to VS Code or something lighter. So it's literally the ideal game engine and setup to enable you to develop games. And yeah, just have fun with it. So what can you expect to be able to make with Flame, the Flame engine? So Flame primarily supports 2D games, 3D games maybe at some point, but so far, based on the discussions in the community, that might take a bit of time, but supports mainly 2D games. So majority of the ones you'll often find endless runners, RPGs, role-playing games, board games, and anything you can imagine. So the sky is the limit. Now, in this case, a game can pretty much be anything you think of. So it can be maybe moving an object from one basket to another, dropping an object, guiding it as it falls, trying to, I think I saw one where it's like you guide a ball to a hole. So as long as you can just conceptualize it, you can pretty much bring it into reality. Now, the functionality that the Flame engine provides to you is, one, plays well with the widgets, since the game itself is encompassed within a widget. So you'll have a game widget that holds all the logic of the game. So the game will operate from there. And then now you can use other widgets. So material design widgets, Cupertino widgets, and then build on top of that and layer them on top of your game. So rather than having to go through the stress that some cases you find, maybe if you're using Unity, where you try to put the high score in the top left, you try to put the health bar in the top right. Okay, I realize that, yeah, the screen might be inverted. So yeah, in my case, my right. So try to put the screen, the health somewhere here, high score somewhere here. You often find that it can be a bit stressful because positioning all of that, it's just doesn't often always work the way you expect. Now, with it playing well with the widgets, it means that you can scale the widgets to cater to different screen sizes. So if maybe someone is using a Galaxy Fold, someone else is using a computer, someone else is using a handheld gaming device, you can scale those widgets to cater to each of those screen sizes and make sure that, let's say, the text is legible on each screen size. It supports the use of sprites. So I'm not sure if you're familiar with sprites, but a sprite is basically like, if you ever did this thing in school where you'd have a book, then you'd draw like stick figures, just carrying out some actions on the pages. So as you flip the pages, it makes it seem like the figure is moving, when actually it's just different images replacing the other. So with sprites, you're able to take 2D images. So say of one maybe taking a left step, another one taking a right step, and then you now look through those images and you're able to create the illusion of perhaps an individual walking, or maybe an enemy flying or hopping around. All of that is supported through the Flame engine. It also provides collision detection. So for you to be able to detect that maybe perhaps your protagonist has collided with an obstacle or an enemy, it will provide that collision detection so that now you can handle it and maybe deal with it in the sense of maybe deducting health, deducting points, however, whichever logic you choose for your game. It supports parallax backgrounds. Now, with a parallax background, I'll probably have to show you this, but it's essentially a situation where you can have your individual moving on, let's say the ground, and as they walk forward, the background kind of moves with them, but kind of at a slower pace. So it creates the illusion that they're walking through a very vast area, when in fact it's just a small area that's looping about. And it also supports game audio for background music and effects, and also has support for an on-screen gamepad. Are we together thus far?
Yes, we are.
All right. So I would like to now proceed showing you some of the experiments I've done. So the first game I ever developed using the Flame engine was called Kinga. Now, Kinga was quite a simple game. Essentially, it was meant to just take advantage of the pandemic. So since everyone was in lockdown and I got bored, just figured, let me try and do something to keep myself busy. And as you can see from the screens, it's just very simple design. Just have the intro screen, or rather the home screen, the name, a few buttons, a display of the high score, and switches to turn on the sound. So there's one for the music and there's one for the sound effects. So you can choose which one to turn off or which one to turn on. And then a button to share the game with your friends and want to give you help, maybe to, if you need direction on how the game actually works. So the thing about Kinga is you can see the cookie that's being assaulted by a number of flies. So the idea behind Kinga initially was a game that was meant to symbolize the coronavirus. So this cookie was actually a healthy cell, it was a red blood cell or something. But when I tried uploading it to the App Store, the game got blocked because the explanation they gave to me was that you're trying to take advantage of the pandemic. So you'll have to either change the whole game or change the how do I say this? Change the concept of the game. Change the concept of the game, or we block the game completely. So
sorry about that.
yeah, it happens. I didn't know that it was a thing, but yeah, it happened to me, and so I had to pivot. And in my case, I had a situation where I was eating and I had a banana on the table. And so I noticed that flies kept on coming to rest on the banana. So as I'm chasing them away, it gave me the idea that why not change this from a healthy cell to something like a cookie that flies are now trying to attack. And now your job is to keep the flies away, because if they rest on the cookie for too long, then it becomes inedible. So it's actually game over. So I made the changes. I got some new sprites and a cookie image. This I actually just got it from the internet. And yeah. So the beauty of the sprites is you'll find the flies actually flap their wings as they're moving about. And it gives it a very nice effect because it's like the flies are now flying towards the cookie. But if you have to take away the animation, it's just the flies gliding towards the cookie. Because what I basically used was just some randomization logic to generate a random area. So they spawn at different areas and then they now attack the cookie. So I can maybe just show you a demo. So you can see it flaps the wings.
Nice.
Yeah, so you can see it's just a simple concept, but when you combine it all with the music, the animation, a bit of color here and there, Makes it quite an attractive game. Okay, that's me just blowing my own trumpet, but I'd like to think it was an attractive game. So any questions with regards to Kinga?
Just a small, probably something that is intriguing to me. Is the code open source, or is it something that you can take us through, like the code, how you loaded the assets, the sprites, how you loaded the music, how you can manage to spawn different threads for different flies?
Oh, okay. So I can take you through that after the slides. I'd actually lined up a demo.
Oh, sure, great.
Yeah. So the next one is the Ruba. Now you'll find that most of my games, the names are distinctly Kiswahili, and that's because I figure that most English names tend to be taken. So if you try, I tried thinking of something like Fukinga, it was protect the cookie. I went online and found protect the cookie. A number of games had similar names. So in order to stand out, I had to make it distinct. And so Kinga stood out. The Ruba basically means storm. So it was like, now you're trying to dodge a storm. A bit more with like in-app ads. So you can see the ads showing up at the bottom. I added leaderboards. So it supports the Apple Store leaderboards, Apple Game Center leaderboards, and the Google Play leaderboards as well. And on top of that, I also added the in-app purchases. So I found that with Flutter and Flame, it's much easier to add these components compared to if you're using Unity or Unreal. So unfortunately, I don't have a video of the Ruba, because the video I had, I had a video, but I got feedback from one of the users that the effects that I had used were questionable. So I don't want to really go into it, because I'd like to think this is a PG-13 session. But during the collision process, the sound effect that I had put in place for now you as the character, the sound effect was supposed to be one of pain. And if you hear it once, it is the sound of pain. But if you collide with the obstacles 1, 2, 3, 4 times, the sound that now comes out is rather suggestive. So I had to, I think the video is still online on YouTube, so I might share a link to that. But other than that, yeah, I had to take it down with immediate effect. So besides the Ruba, I now had another one called Vitayaja. So Vitayaja, I was a bit more ambitious on this one. I was trying to make something similar to a 2-player fighting game. Now, it was much harder than I thought, but I managed to get a bit of work done. So as you can see, here's the character, the platform that they're supposed to run on. So it was supposed to be one player on one side, the second player on the other side. And so when you run it, and you can see I made use of the on-screen gamepad to control the character. So there's the direction, and then there's the jump button. And I went on to add a bit of color. So I think you also noticed that when he runs backwards, it's like he's moonwalking, but with a different kind of swagger. And this was because I couldn't find the sprite to invert the character. So that gave me a bit of trouble. But Yeah. So next attempt was Weka. So Weka was just the same thing with Vitayaja, because Vitayaja is actually on ice at the moment, because I'm trying to figure out how best to actualize it in a simple manner that wouldn't be so taxing on me. So I tried Weka instead. Similar concept, but now as an endless runner. Now, I was listening to some music in the background. Don't judge me. So with Weka, I actually came to learn that I could now combine the widgets.
Hi, Kevin. Are you still there?
As a background. And you can also see I managed to use the font, the same font that's in the game is the same font that's in the widgets. And yeah, if you're wondering if it's Flutter, you can see the debug ribbon here on the side. All right. So when would be appropriate to actually use Flutter with the Flame engine to make a game? So for this, I'd recommend this approach if your game logic is simple, because there are certain things that even I have to admit that Unity, Unreal, Godot, they all just do better because they're designed to make certain aspects of game development easier. But if it's simple game logic, like as you've seen, tapping on enemies to destroy them, dodging obstacles, maybe a board game, it's actually one of the best approaches you can take because it reduces your development time. It's easy to deploy, easy to integrate ads, game leaderboards, achievements, all of that. And perhaps if you're testing an idea, maybe it's just something you wanted to try out. It doesn't have to be something so complex. And if you want to wet your beak before stepping up to the big boys, like Unity, Unreal, or Godot, because one thing you'll often find, or one thing I've found with some of the students I've taught, is you can open Unity. I had one who opened Unity once, saw all the things that were available, and they gave up on game development right there and then, because they said, according to them, it looked too complex. It wasn't worth the hustle. So if you just want something to give you that starting point, it's a good area to check out. And also, if your computer threatens to take itself off the sensors when 10 or more Chrome tabs are open. So essentially, if your computer is incapable of running Unity or Unreal and the likes, now it's better to just work with it. Like I said in the beginning, it's good if you're working on a budget. So where can you deploy a game made using Flutter and Flame? Essentially, just the same places you can deploy a Flutter app. Google Play, the Apple App Store, Windows Store. I don't know if Linux has a store, or I don't know if it's Linux and Steam or Steam Linux. Maybe Linux users, you can give me a heads up here. and online web platforms such as itch.io. Oh, and yeah, if you choose to upload to Steam, you need to make sure you have at least $100 to spare. For some reason, those are the rules. Oh, and then you have to make it paid to help you make your money back. So yeah.
Linux has a number of stores from Snap to the other name. So that's a store.
Okay. Yeah, I haven't explored Linux that much, but I think I'm just familiar with Steam so far. Okay. So why would you choose to use Flame to make your game? So first, it comes with all the pros of Flutter, cross-platform development and deployment. So you make your app once, it can run on literally any device that Flutter supports. So an Android device, an iOS device, web browser, Windows desktop or laptop, whichever, Windows PC basically, a Mac PC as well, all of those. It also gives you the access to the hot reel function. So it supports widgets like I've shown you before. You can build the widgets on top of the game, and it removes the hassle of having to maybe position like the health bar, the high score, designing menus, all of that. You can just do it using the normal Flutter widgets. And it supports any machine that can run the Flutter SDK. And there's ease of integration for ads, payment, or platform solution. Hey, what? Give me a moment. Platform-specific game services, such as leaderboards and achievements. So, yeah. I'll leave you with this. In order to master the art of war, you start a war. It's supposed to be Sun Tzu. I messed up here. But yeah, you get it. Now, any questions before we move on to the demo? I can show you the code. Any questions?
Yeah, sure. Go on, Pointer. I can see you have a question. You can unmute yourself and ask via voice. Null Pointer, do you have a question before we proceed? Okay. Okay. I just written it in the chat. Would you say that? Would you say it's hard to start game dev from Flutter as opposed to starting off in Unity? So it's like, which one do you prefer? People starting it from, is it from Flutter perspective or from Unity? Sorry.
I'd opt for Flutter. It's much easier. Helps you build up the basics. One thing I found with Unity is it tends to obfuscate a lot of the complexity that goes into making the game. So for some people, it just tends to look like magic. It's like I just put this image here, it showed up here, it's been added, but if you ask them like, how is it added? Why is it there? What happens if I remove this? They can't really explain. With Flutter and Flame, you actually get to you get a better understanding of how everything meshes together, and it also makes it okay. Basically, I tend to prefer this whole you need to build it from scratch sometimes. not completely from scratch, but it helps when you can understand how the things are meshed together. So when you move on to this more complex softwares like Unity and Unreal, it now makes sense. You'll understand why or what makes it better than the simple nature that Flame has. Does that answer your question?
I suppose so. That was a question from Null Pointer. We have another one from the Wickerman, and then he's asking Flutter Flame rather significantly heavier on the device compared to a normal Flutter app.
No, it's actually it's just like any other normal Flutter app. It runs the same way, it's the same speed. There's no lag or anything, unless maybe you mess up in your code. But essentially, in all the times I've used it, there's never been any lag with my apps. Okay, I have another one from Felix Courier. So what online resources did you use to learn game dev on Flutter, and which one you can recommend for a beginner? Now, for me, I used a bit of YouTube tutorials and trial and error. And then I happened to join the Flame community, where I found tutorials. So I was able to ask him the questions directly, and he helped me now get a better understanding of how everything works. So unfortunately, he said that he's moved on to other things, so he doesn't really do game dev that much. And so I figured it's better if I give it a try, because I've noticed that the people have the interest, but the resources are lacking, because when I started, Flame was not yet even on the stable version. Right now it's on like version 1.3, I think. But when I started, it was like at 0.9 there. So the resources that were available then have changed. Okay, it doesn't match with the resources that are available now. So I want to give a more updated tutorial to allow people to better understand what's going on, so that they wouldn't necessarily, excuse me. They wouldn't necessarily give up because maybe something doesn't work the way they expect it to. Okay, any others?
Okay, I don't see any other question in the chat. You guys can continue sending your questions via chat. As we continue, we'll keep answering them. Over to you, Kevin. We can proceed with the demo.
Oh, okay. There's another question here. Could you mention something about the backend when creating multiplayer games, if you've had experience with it, and the dev experience integrating with Flame? Okay, so multiplayer games from my end, I used Firebase. It wasn't quite well put together, but with regards to the dev experience, it's quite easy, since Flutter meshes well with the Firebase. But I didn't have the idea clearly in mind, so I wasn't able to actualize it the way I wanted to, because it was supposed to be a multiplayer game, but I don't know, I needed to define it better. So I think I have the sketches somewhere here, but yeah, maybe I can show you the sketches afterwards. But it was basically the Vitayaja game that I showed you, and now a 2-player version of that, but now like a turn-based game where one person makes a move and then another one makes a move, because I figured that real time was a bit too, if let's say it was to send updates to the server, it would overload the server. Okay, I figured it would overload the server based on my experience, because if it's 2 people playing, that's fine. But if you have like 100 people and they're playing with another person, so that's maybe like 200 people, all those requests coming into the server would probably overload it. And yeah, my bank account is not ready to handle that kind of server load. Okay, so do I move on to the demo? Any other questions before I move on? Okay. So just give me a moment to shift the screen. Okay, can you see my screen?
Yes, you can see a screen.
Okay, so I'm going to show you the weak code. Now for weaker, it's pretty much the same as any other Flutter app. The Cupertino icons is, I'm supposed to remove it. I keep forgetting, but I keep saying I'll remove it, but I think it can stay for the time being. And then I used Flame, the Flame package, Flame Audio. Actually, before Flame Audio used to be inbuilt on the Flame package, but with the interest of issuing out updates and whatnot, they had to split it because there are situations where there was something wrong with the audio, but for the updates to be sent, other releases had to be sent along with it, so it used to cause too much delay. So they had to split the package into two different ones to make it easier to manage. And then there's also Flame Block. I tend to prefer Block for state management. There's a Flame splash screen. This one you'll see it once the game starts. It gives your game a bit of flair as you're starting it out. Then Flutter Block, because Flame Block lies on it. Then Go Router for switching screens. Logging for, well, logging. Hive was for the database where I was supposed to store the high scores. And then the providers. I honestly can't remember why I put these two in. I think I might have messed up, but yeah. Unless, of course, someone wants to remind me what a path provider is for. Oh, wait. I think I remember. Path provider was supposed to work with Hive, yeah, to give it access to the storage on the device. So we can go into the main.dart file. So I tried to write some comment. So for this, the game is actually supposed to operate in full screen mode and landscape only. If you don't set this, then the game will just keep changing every time you change the landscape of the phone, the orientation of the phone. If it's portrait, the game will change. Because initially I thought I could work with it, being able to change between portrait and landscape. The problem was once it changes to portrait, you'd have a situation where some widgets are not visible or it gets too squeezed. Or in some cases, once I was able to fix the widget's placement, we now have a situation where the game widget now gets too compressed and it's not able to update on time. And so you'd have like the enemies showing up earlier than expected. And then when you jump, you don't really jump as far as you expect to jump. And yeah, initialize the Hive database. Then the myapp file. So another thing with the Flutter and Flame is that you're the one in charge of compartmentalizing your code. So this is the approach I choose to use. It keeps changing depending on the game that I'm making, or maybe what I find works best. And in my case, you can see I have the models here for the enemies, players, settings, config. It's actually just for exporting the constants. And yeah, so you can see the player data here. You just store the high score and the lives. So every player starts off with 5 lives. Now, yeah, from the main file, we have the app itself. So here is just a material app with the router for you to be able to switch between the screens. And yeah, I think now we can begin. Oh, sorry, let me show you how the routing works. So we have the routes, landing, view. Actually, yeah, I switched. Yeah, so we have the splash screen, the main menu, then the game screen, and the game over screen. So just 4 screens. You keep it as simple as possible. And since it's an endless run, most of the time will be spent in the game screen, which means if player leaves or anything, the farthest they can go is probably game over or back to the main menu. Splash screen, you'll only see it once the game is started or restarted. So yeah. And the splash screen, as I said, I don't know, I think I mentioned, it's actually the Flame splash screen. So that's what I'm building on. You're able to set in things like the duration for it to fade in, to fade out, the duration for how long it's supposed to be visible. And yeah, auto start, this is just false. I can't remember, I'll have to check the documentation for that, but by default, it's just supposed to be false. And here, you're able to set what you can show after you've displayed the Flame splash screen. So for this, I chose to display a company logo and be able to set the width, the height. It's basically just similar to any other Flutter widget. So just create the container, set the width, the height, and then set the image. Now, I think someone had asked about how you store the assets, music, and everything. Personally, I choose to do it like this. So you have audio, music is for the background music, and then the SFX is the effects. So the heart and jump. The heart, I still need to change it. Like I said, it's if you hear it a number of times, it becomes very suggestive. So yeah, I want to play that right now. And then the music that's supposed to now play as the game is running. We have the font. So this is the font that is used inside the game and on the widgets that are displayed. Then we have the images. So images, we have the player. So these are the sprites that I mentioned before. It's just a collection of images, each one in a different pose. So there's one where it's standing still, as you can see here, then takes a step, all of that. And then this is for when you receive a hit. So when you receive a hit, you kind of you flash white, show that you're injured. And this is for when you're jumping. When you're supposed to be when you bend down to dodge. But I didn't manage to implement the bending. So that's still a work in progress. For the parallax, as I mentioned, for the background, it's now like a layered background. So there's the first layer, the second layer, third layer. So I think you're seeing how it's coming together. So there's the ground and then the trees. So once the game starts running, you'll be able to see how they all interact with each other to give you that effect, like the background is moving as you walk. And then it loops over itself continuously so that you can make sure that you're able to give that effect, like the background is moving, like you're actually moving forward. And then the branding is just the company logo. For the bat, these are some of the enemies that you'll face as you're moving throughout the game. So you can see there's a sprite for the wings open, wings closed. Now as they flip continuously with a loop, it gives the impression that the wings are actually flapping as it moves towards you. For the pig, sorry, it's only been a bit too much. The pig is just walking towards you. And yeah, you can see how it looks. Yeah, so I think we can now move on to the main menu. So once you begin the game, you need to create an instance. And then the game widget is now the background. The advantage of this is I don't have to now worry about, as you can see, this is the main menu, not the actual game. So the advantage of this is I don't have to worry about creating backgrounds for my menus. I can just use the game widget as the menu of the screen, because the game already has the parallax background moving constantly. So it now gives your menu that feeling of being interactive. Then yeah, some text. Oh yeah, and then as I said before, I was trying to make the screen responsive to work with either portrait or landscape. This was able to work, but the game widget had issues updating. Those things got too squeezed. And then function to proceed to the game just uses the go router to switch to the game route, which is outlined here. So the game is still a work in progress. So some of these things are not there, like the scoreboard, options, the credits, and the about section. So some still a work in progress. For the game screen, same thing with the previous main menu. I hope this is visible. Just remember that it's on that I'm showing tiny text, and I'm not sure if people are able to see this. Are you okay?
Yes,
Yeah.
I think okay.
Well, okay. I'm seeing question I expected. Tried using Riverpod with Flame. No, not quite. I'm still yet to try out Riverpod. That's why I still stick with Block. But I'm told it has its advantages. So maybe we can discuss after the session. So for the game screen, instantiate an instance of the game, same to the main menu. And now you create the game widget, but now without any widgets on top of it. So in this case, we're just using the game itself. So if you wanted, you could now put maybe like an extra widget. You could just do the same thing, put a stack, put something on top of the game, maybe like a watermark or something if you wanted. Or let's say if you wanted to add ads to your game, you could use maybe like still a stack, or maybe like a list view, or scroll view actually wouldn't be ideal. But yeah, you get the point. You could just use other widgets to help build on what you already have. Now, you can see here we have the overlay builder.
Kevin, I think you stopped presenting. You can't see the screen. And you are mute. You're muted.
Yeah, sorry, I think my internet went haywire. Yeah, so as I was saying, the overlay is a more recent addition and the stable version of Flame. Because initially, I think I can show you the original version of Kinga, where I had to like make the menus myself, and it was quite tedious before I now started using the widgets that are already provided by Flutter. And yeah, there's a loading builder just to give you like a progress indicator that someone will know that the game hasn't stopped running. And yeah, we have the game over screen. This is just a normal Flutter widget, stateless widget. So it's just meant to use responsive. Shows you that the game is over, your score, and the continue button for you to perhaps exit the game or to go back to the main menu. So what else? The heads up display is just meant to show your player data. So things like the score, the high score that you have to beat, the pause menu. So something that I tried here was I used for the life section to show the player the amount of life they have left. It's just widgets. So it's an icon with the favorite, show the heart, and then another icon with the favorite border, show that the life has been spent and is no longer available. So these are some of the advantages of now using Flame. You get to use widgets that already exist. So Had this not been the case, I would have had to do what I did before, where I go to the internet, I have to search for an image that matches the heart and then import it into the game. But since it's already readily available, you just build on what's there. So I think I can give you a demo. I'll run it on web. Well, just give it a second. Oh, okay. There's another question here. How do you make sprites move and change their form? Okay, just give me a second. Let me answer that after you've seen the demo. So that's the splash screen, and then the main menu. Okay, my connection dropped again. Okay, can you see my screen?
Yes, you can see a screen.
Okay, so can now go to the play. Then select the level. Right now, it's just basically the same level. I was trying to think of a way of making different levels, kind of give it more diversity. So you can see it's not really scaled up for such a large screen, but yeah. So you just dodge the enemies and you get hit, the flash white. You can see here at the top, every time you get hit, the hearts reduce and your score changes. Then once it's game over, you can either restart or you can exit. Yeah, so the settings page, as I said, wasn't done. Still a work in progress, but yeah, that's it. So the parallax effect that I was telling you about, you can see it here. So each of these layers now comes together to give you this effect that you're moving forward through the screen. So the farthest layer doesn't move. The one that's just a solid color doesn't move. Then each one now moves at a different speed compared to the others. So I'll now be, sorry. So you import image assets that you're going to use. Then they're loaded in. So you can see here, you load the parallax component. And then now you specify. So from the farthest, which I think was 1, just double check. Yeah. So the farthest, which is now 1, then 2, 3. It also helps to number them because unlike Unity, the resources are not well. Although I think Unity also doesn't number them for you. I think for some it numbers, but others doesn't. So yeah, those are some of the cons of using Flame, but if your game is simple enough, it's not something to worry about. Then you set the base velocity and the velocity multiplier delta. So this is a bit technical terms, but it's not something you have to worry about at this time, at this point in time, if you're just beginning. But it's something you can look into later on as you start getting more familiar with the package. Then after that, you add the background. So this is just a function. So as you're loading the game, once you load, add the background, then you load the game. Then you start the gameplay, check. There you go. Yeah. You take the player sprites from the cache. And so yeah, it seems my internet has a problem. Can you see my screen?
Yes, we can see your screen.
Okay. So I think you've understood the whole changing sequences and everything. I'm not sure who asked the question, but yeah. Oh, and as you can see, there are also different states. So there's the idle state, there's the run, there's the kick, there's the hit, and there's the sprint. So each of those is now mapped out to one of these states of the sprite. So you can find maybe standing idle is like this first 3. And then now running is these others up to a certain point. Then kicking is perhaps these ones. So yeah, you just have to outline it one after the other. Any questions? I saw there was one, but when I lost connection, I think.
Oh yeah, because I still have the questions here. The other one was, do you define the gravity pull, or the Flame engine does that for you? Because when they jump, they come down. So do you define the gravity pull, or the Flame does it for you?
You define it for yourself, as you can see here. So you can reduce it or increase it. Each one has a different effect. So let's say if we put it as 200, and does hot reload. So try that. Yeah, so you can see when you set it at 200, you jump so high, it takes you a while to come back down. Yeah, so You're the one who defines the gravity that's used throughout the game.
Yeah, just ask another question. Is this a private project or the code is open source, something that you can share?
Okay, this in particular, it was private, but I think I worked on it for too long, so maybe I'll be able to share it.
Do you have any of the projects made with Flame that are open to the public that can be shared?
Not at the moment, but I think I can make some open source because like Kinga, I think it's been I made it in 2020, so I think by now the code, I think I can share it out just to let people get a feel for it.
Okay, sure, good.
Okay, so just maybe give me a second. I want to load up the Kinga code, just so I can get an idea of how I was doing things before I got enlightened. So maybe any questions you can just ask while I retrieve the code.
Sure, good. For those that are in the call, if you have any questions, kindly drop them in the chat. We are close to the end of our session today, so you can be dropping them and then we handle them as we almost concluding. Yep. So as Kevin, you load the other code, maybe I can read a few questions that we have and then probably might be responding to them. So we have a question from Jackie. She's asking, now that you have it hosted in various stores, how do you handle deploying updates? Do you have to ship the entire app again?
Okay, that's a good question. Initially, that's how I was doing it, but I now started the CI/CD approach, where I just push the code to my GitHub repository, it checks for errors, and then automatically deploys to the respective stores. So I'm using GitHub Actions for that.
Okay, I hope you have been answered, Jackie. Another one from Null Pointer is asking, are you building with Flutter out of hobby or you have a game plan for production game apps? And how does that path look in terms of funding and all that stuff?
Well, if I'm being honest, yeah, the game plan is to make production apps. I've already published 2 apps, that's Kinga and Baruba. I have managed to make a bit of money from them, although I don't know if you count $4 as actual money, but considering it was from ads, I'd say it was quite a substantial amount. However, one pitfall I encountered was after raising the money. So Google told me that you've made about $4.60, and then they took away the money from me because, according to the email, they could not believe that the money had been raised through legal means. When what actually happened was my friends and colleagues were very supportive. So they downloaded the game. The game ended up getting, in particular, Kinga and Garuba. So when I first launched both of them, the support that I got ended up propelling them to the top of the Play Store and the App Store. And for some reason, Google viewed it as fraudulent activity. So the $4 that I made was taken away. And yeah, I thought of fighting them on it, but the idea of going to sue Google over $4 just didn't make sense. Yeah, Jackie, it was viewed as fraud. I can share you. I think I can look for the email and I'll share it with you guys. Essentially, they took away the $4, a small amount as it sounds, and there's nothing I could do about it. Yeah, so this is Kinga, and behind it is Wika. So I just want to show you a bit of how I started out. So in the beginning, I was a bit rusty, so I didn't really know what I was doing. So you can see here, at least I've tried to organize everything. I did the same thing with Kinga. So just like the other one, just like Wika, actually Kinga was the first. So Kinga, you can see the background music, the sound effects, the fonts, backgrounds. So there's one for day, there's one for night, and there's the dialogue, which was like a wooden background, the dialogue header. Now, the thing that you have to remember is for this dialogue header, as you can see it here, the high score. Don't know if, can you see this?
Yeah, yes, you can see it.
Yeah, the high score with the number 3 on it. I had to position this manually. I'll show you how I did it. So it was painstaking work. I had to, because it wasn't like with Flutter, I can just say align to the top right, and just leave it at that. I had to code each and every aspect of it. And then every time I would run it on a device, something would shift and I'd have to change the code. Got to the point where I just said to hell with it, like, Leiko. And yeah, is the menu button. So now here is the code. I haven't updated it in a while, so still some things missing. Okay, some things are updated, so they're not really supported. So I have the main class. So you set up, before you used to set up Flame, and then now set the game widget. So you can see when you're setting up Flame, unlike with Wika, where it's much easier, because this is the main class. It's much easier. Initially, you had to, as you're setting up Flame, you had to call everything you're going to use. So backgrounds, dialogues, enemies. And as you can see, since the enemy would come from either the left or the right, I had to import, there was the enemy. So like fly 1, fly 2, macho fly 1, macho fly 2, then macho fly 1 inverted, macho fly 2 inverted. So all of this I had to do it by myself. As you can see here, I did the same thing with the images. So that's enemies. So there's, let's say, Grumpy B, Grumpy B2, and Grumpy B2 inverted. So all of that I had to do it manually. And it was not a good time. So all of that, including the audio that you're going to use for the button click, well done, all of that. You had to load it all up before you could even start the game. And then since I didn't use any widgets, it meant that all the menus that you see for Kinga, I had to code them manually. So you can see here, I only have one screen, which is the game itself. Oh, and then for Kinga, I also added the ads. So there's the reward ad, where if you want to continue after you've lost, you can watch an ad, and then it allows you to continue. And now within that, I had, yeah, the game controller. So the game controller is now what controls everything. The music button, the sound button, share button, the home view, the play view, the pause view.
Okay, seems that you have lost Kevin again. So on the home stretch, you can drop your questions. I currently see 3. So we'll be handling them as soon as we have him back, so that you can also be concluding the session. So any more questions that you have in mind, that you have been planning to ask about the gaming engine, you can drop them. In the meantime, we have a call for speakers for Flutter Forward Extended Nairobi. I hope you guys are still sending your papers. It will be open for the next 31 hours. So let me just share a link to it. So I've shared a link to the call for speakers for Flutter Forward Extended Nairobi. The date has not yet been confirmed. We had a tentative day of 11th of March, but we'll be changing it to probably 18th of March, the week afterwards. We have Kevin back.
Okay.
Back to you. We have more questions for you as well.
Okay, let me just finish this part. Yeah, so now with the high score, so now I'd have to set the position, all of it, font size, and everything. So I had to use tile sizes. So a tile size essentially was like, you take the screen width and then you divide it either by 14 or by 10, depending on what kind of device it is. Now this kind of helps control the size of the elements of the game, but now makes it much harder, because as you can see, this little thing here, as simple as it looks, caused me a lot of stress. But at least now, as I said, I've become enlightened. And the good thing with Flame is they keep improving with every iteration. So some of this stress that I went through, at least now, as you can see, you don't have to go through it here. It's been eliminated, so it's much easier to make a game. So in case you're afraid of that, do not worry about it. Okay, so a question here. Oh, okay, so someone is asking for download links for the games. Yeah, I think I can share them. I can share them on the group again. I can share them on the WhatsApp group if that's okay, Felix.
Yeah, sure. Actually, we'll share all the resources, the slides and the link via email through Meetup so that everyone who are registered for the event can have them. Yep. So you'll get them. So before actually we do this,
Okay.
I had a question about the resources and the assets. Do you generate them manually or you buy them, like the icons, the sprites? How do you create them?
Well, at the moment I am a humble thespian, or as the president likes to say, I'm a hustler. So I do whatever it takes to save money. And what I tend to use is a website called Open Game Art, where you can basically get all the resources you need for free. So I use this. Here you can find pretty much anything you need. One of my personal favorites is the Ninja. You can get all the sprites you need with every kind of pose. So if you want the ninja running, ninja sprinting, jumping, all of that, they provided for you. The ninja dying, sliding, attacking, all of it's available, and it's free on condition that you give attribution. But I'm yet to find someone who gives attribution. I think I'm one of the only ones. And another thing that I try to do, if you check one of my games, let me just yes, so oh yeah, the video is here, but you'll play it on your own time because as I mentioned, the sound was it still brings me nightmares. But yeah. So with the Ruba, like one thing I do, there's a credit section. Actually, you'll have to download it, but yeah, there's a credit section. So I try to give credit to everyone maybe who has helped me as I was developing the game, testing it and all that, and maybe the assets that I've used, just in case maybe I make it big one day and someone tries to sue me.
Okay, awesome. Wow, that has been great. I see we have one last question from Jackie. Then she's asking, on Wicca, when you lose the 5 lives, is there a timeout or the user can continue playing? You have mentioned that one king player, that on king's player watch the ads. Guess that's what she's asking. I'm not sure. So if you got the question, you can answer it as we wrap up our meeting.
Yeah. So ideally, what I try to do is I try to make sure that the ads are not intrusive. So I'm not really a fan of the idea of showing ads at the bottom and all that, but yeah, but rent still needs to be paid. So occasionally I'll still show the ads at the bottom, but here I haven't implemented that feature yet, but ideally once maybe you lose the 5 lives, then you'd have to maybe watch an ad. You can choose to watch an ad or just go back to the main menu. So it's not like one of those games where if you don't watch the ad, you can't continue, or if you don't watch the ad, we give you another ad just because we are pissed off that you didn't watch that ad. It's just, yeah. So now there'll be an option here for continue. maybe with a countdown, similar to how Kinga is, similar to how Kinga and Yoruba are. So it counts down from 10. Then if you watch the ad, you can continue, or just restart or go back to the main menu, which seems to have broken because of bot reloading. But yeah.
Okay, thank you so much, Kevin. That has been a good session. I've quite learned a lot about gaming. I've always viewed as one of the hardest things to grasp and understand. But that has been a great demo. I see you have a question there. I'm not sure if it's a question or a suggestion opinion. Thank you so much for the time that you've given us. To read the question from Null Pointer, it says it was a great demo. You can make some tutorials. Can you make some tutorials on how you build Wicca, especially on the decision made and reason behind making the game loop animations, the consideration taken, and etc. So that was great. I hope you'll make some that we can follow, watch and stuff, and also learn as well. Also, I hope you'll share the resources. If it's possible, you can make an open source application that we can follow, even share with others that might be interested in building games with Flame. So thank you so much for being part of this. Thank you so much for agreeing to share with us. Those that joined the meeting, you can follow Kevin at Kevin Omwanga. I hope I pronounced that right. I've shared the Twitter handle in chat. Yeah, so if you have a parting shot, Kevin, you can share it before I give Candy to close the meeting. Over to you, Kevin.
Okay. On my end, I'd like to say thank you for honoring me with this opportunity. It was actually one of the things on my bucket list for this year. At least I've gotten to do it. I hope I'll be able to do more. Yeah, gaming is actually quite fun. It's just, I like to say it's the closest you can ever come to being God, because you get to make the decisions, you choose what counts as death, you can resurrect people, you can basically write the Old Testament and New Testament all at once, just by making a game.
Awesome.
Yes. I hope to see you in the next one.
Okay, great. That's cool. Candy, are you there? So thank you so much. Candy, if you're there, you can close the meeting if you have any announcements to make. Then, yeah. Candy still there?
Yes, I'm here. Thank you so much, Kevin, for the amazing session. It was truly an honor to have you. And also learning Flutter and gaming. I'm so sure not so many of us were really aware of that, but it's been really nice learning about it. And I'm hoping like for the next session, we're going to like now get hands-on and at least now have our community writing, you know, playing around with the gaming tools with Flutter. Other announcement is and you're also very much welcome to our session again. It was really great having you. The next update is we are planning on having our Flutter Forward Extended Nairobi in March. So we are also looking forward to like having now a physical event. So it would be an honor to have all of you there, and also kindly sign up to speak if you wish to like have an opportunity to speak. We normally invite people to come and speak and, you know, share what they've got, teach us what you know in Flutter, and let's also learn from you and you learn from us as well. Otherwise, it's been real and I'm looking forward to hosting you guys next month. Thank you guys.